Welcome to Off the Track on WISP Sports Radio, Episode 2. Off the Track is about flat track roller derby featuring exclusive interviews. I'm Mick Swagger, and at WISP Sports, we believe that women in sport deserve equal coverage. Thank you for joining me in this new show all about roller derby. Off the Track podcast is hosted by me, Mick Swagger. My pronouns are she, her. Off the Track features interviews of coaches, players, former players, business owners, and fans of flat track roller derby. We can be found on WISP Sports Radio. On our second episode, I'm going to be talking to Vivien Leigh-Thal of Rainy City Roller Derby. A lot of people may not know how much planning it takes to get into WFTDA D1 and the challenges that teams face. I've been witness and part-time coach to Rainy City All-Stars as they made their way from WFTDA ranked 123 all the way up to the top 15 within just 2 seasons. Since I have coached them and have many friends on the team, I've seen the hard yards the team has put in to reach this success. Their collective determination, time, and money are just a few factors. As I coach roller derby teams around the world, players and coaches have asked me many questions about Rainy City's success, such as, what do they do for their workouts? How many jammers do they have? How does their leadership function? Do they get a lot of transfers? Do you think I should transfer there? Did you single-handedly coach them to the top? Which is a hilarious question. Well, today, all of your questions will be answered as I have Vivien Leigh-Thal from Rainy City. Viv is a long-stand coach and captain of the Rainy City All-Stars from Manchester, England. Rainy has come away from a successful weekend, taking 4 wins at the Euro Cup over Kallio Rolling Rainbow, Helsinki All-Stars, Stockholm All-Stars, and Crime City All-Stars. In case you haven't been paying attention, Rainy City is a rising star in the world of flat track roller derby. With these wins at the Euro Cup, I suspect they'll be ranked within the top 10 in the WFTDA at the next rankings release. They've also just come off of hosting the WFTDA Roller Derby World Summit, the Blood and Thunder Women's World Cup, and most recently the Euro Cup. There seems to be no limit that Rainy City doesn't strive for and reach successfully. Viv, first off, congratulations and welcome to Off the Track. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Mick. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Can you tell me, first off, what a brief synopsis of your derby career, what your current role is with Rainy, and what pronouns you use?
Sure. I first started with Rainy City probably back in about 2011, where I had a brief stint as an NSO before becoming too tempted and strapping on some skates. And then I started with a complete new skater program. And then in about 2015 was voted captain, and captain then for the next 3 seasons before I retired in June last year. And now I'm currently coaching. My pronouns are she and her.
Thanks so much. So you just recently retired in this past season. Can you tell us why you decided to make that decision?
Yeah, initially I was forced to stop skating following the Invitational tournament, due to injury and illness. And then after that, I'd already made the decision to stop at the end of that season to concentrate on having a family. So I'm currently 7.5 months pregnant. But obviously, there's no way I could step away from Rainy City entirely. So the choice to carry on coaching was one I'd made before I even decided to retire. I've always been interested in coaching, and I'd always been part of the coaching body. So the decision to carry on coaching once pregnant was a simple one for me to make, really.
And I'm so glad that you have. I've witnessed your being a captain for the past, the whole time that I've been a part of Rainy City All-Stars. And I've said it many times, and not just to my partner, but when I talk about great leaders in roller derby, I always think about you and think about what a great captain you are and all of the things that you bring to the team, and just so glad that you're also there continuing to coach. And also congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, first off, there must be like a deep collective level of exhaustion at Rainy City with all of the activities and hosting that you all are doing. Can Can you tell us a little bit what magnitude of work has gone into all of that?
I can try, but it's quite difficult to convey really the drive and the determination, the hours, endless hours of volunteering that the league puts in, and it really is every member of the league to each and every one of the events that we put on. Obviously, the World Cup was a fantastic success and a huge event on kind of the scale we've not really tackled before. So there is coming after that was an immense feeling of pride from the whole league of what we'd achieved, because it really was one of the biggest things we'd done today. But even though, you were discussing the exhaustion, it's kind of funny because we're already talking about the next things we're going to put on next year and the rest of this year. So there is definitely a culture in Rainy City where we find it difficult to rest, I think. So yeah, they are difficult things, they are tiring things, but they're really rewarding, and every member of the league that puts in the time, has that collective feeling at the end of having achieved something pretty spectacular. So it's been a great few years for Rainy.
Absolutely, and what a wonderful job you all did at the World Cup. I completely felt taken care of, and I have this little felt like I was a part of Rainy all along, but at the World Cup I really felt it. People were really taking care of me, which was so special, and I saw that happen to every team. It wasn't just because I knew you, but everybody had such an amazing experience, and to host 38 teams that were playing in this tournament over 4 days is huge. And not just that, but leading up to it, you also rented your space out to teams. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. And I think obviously, putting on a tournament of that size with 38 teams is definitely difficult. And there were, obviously areas that as a league we thought, oh, we could have done this better, we could have done that better. But the energy and the kind of the whole vibe in the venue when the event was on was just phenomenal. So we were really pleased.
It really was. And you, not also to mention, you had played a game against 2x4 the Thursday previous to the World Cup. So the All-Stars were busy with the game, and then 8 of the All-Stars were part of Team England, and then you put on the event. So added layers of things that are always happening at Rainy City.
That's right, yeah.
What are some of the things that you all are trying to do next year, if those are not a secret?
Well, I mean, the first thing is just discussions about hosting another Euro Cup, because, I mean, it was such a great event, and obviously it was a great event for us, but we feel as well for the other teams, and it's one of our goals now to kind of create regular, competitive tournaments within Europe that teams are going to want to return to, and that, you're going to start seeing some real competition, get some good narratives and history in there. So that's probably our not our next event, but the one we've been talking about recently is trying to make Euro Cup a regular thing.
That's so wonderful and so important, because we really need more competition outside of the US. And just going back a bit, I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the history of the Rainy City All-Stars and when you all first started kind of aiming for, well, back then we were aiming for D2, and kind of the journey of that. So back in 2014, the London Roller Girls were the only team in the UK, and I think Europe included, making a name for themselves in D1s. Is that right? Were they the only one?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And back then I was playing for the Gotham Girls, and I had coached Rainy City a couple of times. And when Gotham came to play London, you, Una Bomber, and Faye Roberts accosted me at the after party. Not really, but you gave me many vegan treats, which was wonderful, and asked me to bench coach you during your USA trip, which I ended up not being able to because I had, in fact, then gone to Australia for a few months. So I feel like this was really the start of your move up the rankings, when the team had planned to go to the US and start playing some teams that were ranked higher. Can you tell us what the team plans were and how you would strategize to move up the rankings?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of actually started a little before that in 2014 when it was like when it all went so wrong that it made it go right, really. We went to the WET tournament, and we ended up playing that was the first weekend for SFC games, for the Strength Factor Challenge games, the first tournament they were ever played. And we were currently, at the time, we were ranked like 132 or around that area. And we got this SFC game against Berlin, Bear City, and they were about 45 at the time. And the game the score ended up quite close. So we would have got a massive boost from that, which we did. But obviously at the time, with it being so new, such a new program, we just had no idea about what to do with the boost and how to get games in. We agreed to the SFC kind of blindly, really. And then we went into off season, and the 3 months passed, and our boost just left. So it was a really wasted opportunity for us, and that was kind of the moment when we said, like, right, we really need to pull our socks up, do our homework, get out our calculators, and figure out how we want to approach this if we want to make any progress. So that's what we did. So in 2015, we planned to go to the States, hoping to gain points and rankings. But we were still all about, 120 something. So we still had difficulty arranging games, even with the American teams. And it was a lot of meetings, a lot of sitting down with the computers, a lot of emails and a lot of coffee, and just basically messaging all the teams near each other that we possibly could, and seeing if any of them would agree to play us. And thankfully, like 5 or 4 teams agreed to play us. So that's when we headed out.
And how did you come out after that trip to the States playing those teams?
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I think we were up by about 16 spots after that tournament. I mean, it's a long way and a lot of money to go, to spend to go up 16 places, really. So again, it wasn't the boost that we were hoping for. I mean, obviously, I think every team thinks that they deserve to be maybe higher than they are in their rankings. But we certainly felt like we had more to give than our rankings reflected. So by the end of that tournament, despite having, we played Dutchland, and I think it was like 280 something to 60 something. And then Black Rose was like 300 and odd to 100. We had like a really successful tour in terms of scores, but it just didn't really work out that much of a benefit rankings wise. So again, it was like back to the drawing board.
Right, back to the drawing board and back to trying to find teams to play. And then and now it's still difficult to find teams that are close to you. It's a lot easier now. Obviously, you have the Euro Cup. So but before that, what did you do then? What was the next step to, moving up those 16 rankings? That's great. We're in the 120 areas, the 1 teens. What do you do after that? Where was the next place that you went?
Well, it was the 2016 season, really, that was the big season for us. And we, again, in 2016, we were still struggling to get those higher ranked teams to play us within Europe. And there still wasn't a massive, amount of teams to even, get in touch with within Europe. So we arranged to go to a beach brawl tournament, where we had, I think, three sanction games, and you were with us then, Mick. And we played Fort Myers, and that was a really big score for us. That was like 430 something to 35, something like that. And Red Stick. I mean, these were great teams as well, like really fantastic, positive teams to play. So it was a really nice experience for us. And really, I'm sure that would have boosted our rankings quite a bit, but the kind of lucky thing for us fell, ironically, when we played Newcastle, who were also at the tournament, and they were coming off the back of an SFC game with a really heavy boost. So they had a great weight. So when we played them, and I think we won by like maybe 130 points or something. It was 218 to 76. I've just seen it here. We got a massive boost from that because they were they were still holding on to that really heavy weighting from their SFC. So it was actually that was the lucky break for us. And as I said, we went into that tournament hoping to break D2. We were really had our heart set on breaking that D2 cutoff point. And then following the Newcastle game, I just remember being in the pool with the team, and like we were all laughing about how hilarious it would be if we actually made it into D1s, and wouldn't that be ridiculous? And then that's what happened. And it was great.
It was really great. Actually, it's pretty ironic that you played Newcastle as well, because they are from the UK. They are near y'all.
That's right. They're literally
right?
down the road. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was so strange that you both had to go to the States in order to play each other. But lucky that they had that SFC weight in their ranking.
I feel like it would be a much slower process. Sorry, to climb the rankings if it wasn't for that.
Can you tell me a little bit about the evolution of bench management? When I first met Rainy City, you didn't have a bench manager, which is why you asked me to come to the States with you. But now you have a fabulous bench staff and lots of tools, online tools to use. So can you tell us a little bit about kind of the evolution of that and how you have developed your bench staff now?
Yeah, I think we've finally found ourselves in a fantastic position in terms of bench management at the moment. But it's been quite a long journey. We were originally one of those teams that would have to ask injured skaters or partners of skaters to line up or bench for us because we didn't have that permanent position. We had skater coaches, but they were obviously playing on game day. So when it came to the bench, it was always kind of just grab anyone we could the week before. That's obviously, that was an issue for us, and I think it impacted the way that we played. I think great bench management is vital to a team's success. So we made that a point of development for the team, and we set out to try and find a person that could fulfill that bench manager spot, which at the time was kind of the main role for us. We sidelined lineup in place for getting a really good bench manager. And so that's when, after working with you for a long time, and you would fill in in that role when we kind of traveled and things, and obviously that was amazing. We managed to rope in Michael Watson, who is now, the roller derby darling that he's become.
He really has.
Yeah. And at the time he was just Faye Roberts' partner. So, we asked him to come along, and he was always watching as a fan, and he's got a really great sports mind, and he was really enthusiastic and above all was willing to commit. So he started to come regularly to training, to watch footage, to blow whistles, and then that just evolved, and he began to really flourish in the role, and he's now one of the driving forces behind the team. I mean, he's one of the driving forces in the league from all angles, PR, everything. But within the team itself, the All-Stars team, he's crucial in the run-up to events, in the everyday coaching of the team, but also on game days on the bench, he's become our little rock. So it's great to have that role finally filled. And then after that, we kind of moved on to looking for someone to fulfill that lineup duty, and now with the extra allowance for bench staff, we've kind of turned everything on its head, and we've done away with traditional lineup management, which had been recently filled by Sam, who's the partner of Lauren Swaffield. So he'd been doing that, and now with the extra allowance, we just kind of decided that there's no real need for a lineup only position, it seems kind of redundant. We were looking more into what the players on the bench needed, and for us that was guidance and feedback throughout. So we now operate with a track manager, which is Michael, and he's kind of responsible for communicating with jammers, while they're on the track, on-track strategy, communicating with officials, and has the final kind of decision on the day. And then we have a pack manager that provides feedback to the packs, and also runs their lines. And then a jammer manager who does the same thing for the jammers. And then we have a stats manager that runs our in-game stats and statistics and kind of advises the other three roles as to like what's the best decisions to make from a statistic point of view. So things like which are our strongest performing packs, which packs are our jammers working well with, which packs are our jammers struggling against, that kind of thing. So it's all kind of seems to be falling into place at the moment, and hopefully he's going to continue to gel and grow and become a really reliable setup.
Right, and it's one that I think all teams are struggling with. When I was bench coaching you, Michael was doing sort of lines, but mostly jammer management, and we were making decisions together. And a lot of those, we didn't have live stats. Sometimes you had live Ringster stats, which don't always tell you everything. But we had jammer stats, which was helpful, not in every game. But we would make decisions based on kind of what we were seeing from our perspective. So it's amazing that you now have a stats manager. Can you tell us a bit about the new bench stats tool that, and also Derby on Toast? And Michael's developed both of those, is that right?
That's correct, yeah. Coach Michael Watson that develops, he's always coming up with little gadgets and gizmos and designing fantastic things that, provide support for the team in all sorts of ways. And Derby on Toast is one of those things that has managed to benefit the whole roller derby community, really. It's kind of a go-to space for game planning. I think, rankings, like we said, are a difficult thing to get your head around at times. And so there's a game planner section on there so teams can put in possible scores against teams and all the weights are up to date and things. So people can kind of see in advance how things would play out rankings wise if they scheduled certain games, which I think is vital. Not everybody is we have more athletes than mathletes, so that's kind of also on there, like you can put in some live scores as they go. So if you're watching a game and you see what the score is, you can then see the effects that would have on rankings, which can add to the enjoyment of watching the sport. There's some jammer heat maps on there, which are great for kind of identifying where your jammers are getting stuck, where your jammers are getting out. That you can use that any way you like, but having those tools there, I think is great. And the fact that one of the things that's great about Michael and the things that he comes up with is that he's always just so willing to share with the entire roller derby community. And that's, I think, a big part of kind of Rainy City's ethos is that we're all in this together and we wouldn't create something and keep it to ourselves. So, when our skaters go coaching, they'll coach our latest strategies because, the best play against the best, and the better we all are, the better for the sport, really. So, I think that's, one of the things I really like about the Derby on Toast and the stats tool is just that all these things are being shared.
Absolutely, and that's what Derby has been since the beginning, and I hope that it continues to be. When I came to any team that I coach, it's always in my mind, I'm going to teach the latest strategies, and at the level that the teams that I'm coaching are at. So that's really great. I really have loved hearing so much more about Rainy. I like talking about you guys all the time, and hearing what your contributions are to the Derby world. Really appreciate it, and really appreciate you having the time to chat with me today, Viv. before we go, could you just tell us a little bit about kind of what's coming up for the All-Stars for the rest of the season? I know you have a tournament coming up and maybe some hopes for playoffs and champs.
C word. I think the next big thing for the All-Stars right now is the team are traveling over to Montreal for the Georgia W Tush tournament, which is a WFTDA recognized tournament, where they'll be facing Texas, Jax, and Montreal. So, some fantastic opponents there. I say they because I will probably be in Labour that weekend, so I'm hoping for some good scores to keep me focused.
Good scores and like a really gorgeous little baby also, all planned for that weekend.
Yeah, and a really good stream. So they have that coming up, which is great. I mean, that's kind of the focus for training right now. That's the focus of this section of the season for us. And that's kind of what we're going to be building towards. After that, then obviously we've got our eyes on playoffs. I mean, going off the locations, we're kind of hoping for a European allotment. Like if we make the cutoff, hopefully a European playoffs would be good. And then really for us the big goal is champs. We weren't a million miles away last year with the London game. So in a way, this is our next goal. I think in a one respect, it's kind of a good thing that we've had that extra season to prepare. So now if the team make it to champs this year, I think we'll be able to put up a good fight and a good representation of ourselves. And so I'll be looking forward to that.
I will as well. And, I told all of you after that game, which we were all on the edge of our seats. I think I was driving out to the country watching it on my phone, like biting my nails basically. But all teams have that story. LRG has that story of going to playoffs and almost making it to champs. When I played on Wheels of Justice, we had that story. And it just makes you stronger and it makes you appreciate more the next year the work that you have to do to get there, and the drive becomes a little bit stronger. So I really hope that it all turns out well for Rainy City this year. I'm like your number one fan, so I'll be watching for sure. Thanks so much, Viv. Just to kind of think about some of the resources and the links that we talked about, just to share more with the Derby world. People can find Jammer heat maps, bout planning tools, live stats, scores, and impact on rankings, that kind of stuff is it derbyontoast.com? And the bench stats tool, where can they find that?
You can find a link to that from the Rainy City Facebook and also on our Twitter if we ever get it back up and running.
Right now you're in Twitter jail, so hopefully that comes back up. But in the meantime, people can find that on your Facebook page, and we'll post links to that to the show notes. Wonderful. Any last things that you want to share with us, Viv?
No, just to say thank you for having me. I listened to the last episode and I thought it was fantastic. I think that what you're doing here with a podcast with skaters, ex-skaters, coaches, I think it's fantastic. And I, for one, found the first episode super interesting. So thank you for having me on. It's really been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Mick, but it's been a pleasure, and hopefully, it's been useful.
Of course, absolutely. And so interesting to know kind of the evolution of the Rainy City All-Stars, and to really talk about the realities of that and the planning and the work that went into it, so that all those other people with stars in their eyes of D1 know what's going on, and they can have some expectation about what they might be able to do. So I really appreciate having you and share that information with the rest of the Derby world. Thank you so much for joining us. For more conversations from the world of women's sports, subscribe to WISP Sports Radio on your podcast app and visit wispsports.com for blogs, articles, and videos, where you'll also find show notes and links for this episode. You can join in the conversation by following us on social media at wispsports. Email us with any comments, questions, or suggestions at info@wispsports.com. I'll be back next week for another episode of Off the Track. Until then, thanks for listening and supporting women in sport everywhere.